everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today I am so blessed. I get the opportunity to continue my series on the amazing men of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Today I have with me Dr. Justin Muller. He is a licensed marriage family therapist and assistant professor and the clinical coordinator for the clinical mental health counseling program at LaGrange College. Please, got it right?
You got it right.
Ooh, I practiced that one for days. I practiced that one for But first and foremost, before I get started, we're going to spend some time today talking about mental health, the work that you do. But before I get started, I always take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time in your day to sit down and chat with me. And with that, Dr. Muller, welcome to the show.
Right. All right. Thank you, Alana, for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So as I mentioned, you are a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. So before we get started, just let everybody know what chapter you are with.
Absolutely. LaGrange Alumni chapter, LaGrange, Georgia, Kappa Alpha Psi, spring 22.
Awesome. So let's get into the work that you do, because I have a short amount of time with you today and I'm going to try to pack everything in here. But as I said in the opening, you are in the mental health field. And I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell you, but it's far and few in between that you see Black folks in the mental health industry. And to add another layer to that, it's very far few in between that you see a Black man in the mental health industry. So my question to you is, what inspired you? What was your motivation for pursuing this as a career path?
It's an excellent question. For me, so I had an interesting path to get to become a counselor educator. I actually was a business major when I was in undergrad. Okay. And I had some outstanding mentors as well as professors who helped steer me into a career in counseling. So I was unaware that you could go to graduate school for something different than you got your bachelor's degree in. And upon talking to one of my mentors, Dr. 𝗙𝗘𝗥𝗘𝗏, professor, I went to the University of South Carolina, and she opened my eyes to the field of marriage and family therapy. And so one of the things that I hope to talk about today is the importance of just asking questions sometimes, because it was a space where I simply just asked to meet with her. She was a psychology professor, and then she opened my eyes to the field. One of the talents or gifts that I was blessed with, or was been told throughout my life, was that I was a good listener. And so for me, listening to people's stories is always something that I took an interest and a passion in. And so I parlayed that to go to Valdosta State University and get my master's in marriage and family therapy. And that's when I fell in love with the field. And so as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I often think about some of my experiences and how I have two parents who really gave me everything that I needed, and the importance of support, for having that structure there. That's about, I imagine, because I hear so many different stories from families I've worked with where that structure is not there. Mm-hmm. And so for me, as a family therapist, it's imperative to help families, whether it's structural concerns, whether it's helping men relationships, whatever that case may be, being able to do those things. And so after that, I got this passion for teaching. And then I went to get my PhD in counselor education. And so now I want to teach other aspiring counselors how to be counselors so they can go out there and serve.
Awesome. Much needed. I'm so glad you pursued that path. Like I said, it's far few in between. I see my brothers in that field, and you're so needed. So I'm so glad that you are here. You mentioned South Carolina. You and I share Southern roots.
That's right.
You're down the street from me. I was born in North Carolina.
All right.
And what I'm about to say, I don't want to stereotype this as in all Southern men, but what I grew up seeing, I'm just from the perspective that I grew up seeing, generationally, the brothers that I saw didn't tend to talk about their mental health. It was not a conversation. Don't ask me, don't talk about it. And sometimes it didn't manifest itself in the best of ways. My question to you is, we're here in 2023, and I'm seeing some brothers, kind of be open to it, being flexible about it. what is the importance of Black men really sharing, hey, look, I'm not in a good space, or even sharing what, the brothers, like, it's okay. What's the importance of brothers sharing their stories, their mental health journeys?
No, I appreciate the question so much, Lana. So I'm a big A Different World fan. I'm sure you're familiar with the television show late 80s, early 90s. And I was recently watching a documentary about A Different World. And one of the things the documentary highlighted was you saw an increase in the number of Black folks going to college after A Different World came out. You also saw the increase in attendance at HBCUs as well as the increase in PWIs. And to me, that speaks to representation. When we can kind of see these things, that makes it like we can touch it, like we can go there. And so I liken that to this conversation talking about Black men and us taking part in counseling, taking part in making sure that our mental health is where we need it to be. It's important that we have more Black counselors, that we have more health professionals speak out and talk about issues and concerns that we all go through. The reality of it is, I think one of the most underrepresented groups is us as Black men. And I'm meaning that in the sense of sometimes people's perspective and perception of us is what's seen on television, what's seen on news, what's seen on social media. And some of that's because we don't feel comfortable sharing and telling our stories. Because I think we've been socialized to not share the stories. It's keep it in. Masculinity serves as like a Band-Aid for being able to express, hey, I'm going through something. And so I think it's imperative that, and to the point that you made earlier, I was born in 1989, so I'm 34 years old, and it's a space of similar messages, like just in the past 34 years, the same sort of area where it's like it's not cool or it's not masculine to be able to talk about issues and concerns. But the reality of it is we all have traumas, we all have problems, and it's nothing soft or weak about being able to talk about these issues and concerns. Because unfortunately, because we don't talk about these things, they just continue to build itself up inside of us. And then we sometimes find unproductive, destructive, negative ways to ultimately share what the concern issues are, because we just haven't been socialized to do that. That's not the case for everyone, but there are too many brothers who are in situations where if they only could have just talked with someone, if they only could have just had a space to be able to rap with someone could have intervened, then maybe the circumstances of the situation could have just been different.
True. Now, I listening to you talk, and I'm guessing, I'm wondering, what is the conversation like? Because now you have the experience, the education, and the training, and you're also a Black man who has, you're situated in a lot of pockets of Black men. So you have the fraternity life. The fraternity goes out into the community and mentors young men. You have your students and your family structure. So now having all of the education, the knowledge that you have, what is the conversation, the dialogue with your brothers and saying, hey, it's okay, how?
For me, when I'm trying to promote and help destigmatize counseling for someone, I'm always up the space of everyone can benefit from going to speak to someone. Like, you don't have to have, I think there's a misconception that you've got to be dealing with the pressures of the world to go sit down and talk with someone for an hour. And that's just not true. Okay. Folks who are rather, let's imagine a couple, for instance, who are getting ready to get married. To be able to just kind of go in and speak to someone about like what marriage life is going to be like doesn't mean that you all are having to have a terrible relationship. The reality of it is there's always room for improvement. There's always room to grow. And so that same sort of conversation, I think, was specifically with Black men in the space of it's okay to be able to come and rap, and it's cool, and it's something to be able to talk about whatever sort of experience that's there. I think introduction and, again, representation is important. I'm always mindful of being a Black man, a proud Black man, the importance of the message that I'm going to share, because I'm a counselor. So it's important for me to talk about these things and highlight those areas and encourage brothers who look like me, who have similar backgrounds, who are different, to be able to take part in counseling services or become counselors themselves. The person who's going to understand a Black client's experience the best is a Black counselor. So that's another one of my responsibilities, is to encourage more Black folks who want to go on and serve as counselors or therapists, whatever the case may be. But I think back to your question, it's important that we just start with anyone can benefit from counseling services, and that truly simply asking and wanting to and kind of giving a space for folks to be able to share, talk to me about what's really going on.
Okay.
Because I think we sort of just kind of get programmed to just keep on going. Like we work 9 to 5 and like we just kind of we take care of this with that. But like truly, like let's talk about rather this anxiety, or let's talk about depression. Like let's stop using these terms as got to be scary terms, but as opposed to like we all could be subjected to feelings of depression depending on what's going on. So I think when we start helping to kind of establish that sort of safety or an environment that allows us to be able to have those conversations, that's when things start to change.
Okay. Now you mentioned a couple of things there. I kind of want to see if I can remember. Let me go back here. The piece about being sort of relatable, there was in there. You teach at LaGrange College, and I guess leading into this question, the demographics at that college, is it predominantly white?
It's about half and half.
Okay, so in the educational process of teaching people to be effective in their counseling, what is the messaging when it comes to counseling a Black person, man, when you don't come from that cultural experience?
Right. I greatly appreciate your question, because I think that this is, again, this might be a barrier for someone coming into counseling, because it's a lack of Black male counselors. So it's like, this person I'm going to, a 26-year-old white female is not going to understand the experiences of a 45-year-old Black male. That's a great question. So I appreciate you sharing that. One of the things that I always talk to my white students about, and when I give presentations where the counselors are predominantly white, the importance of the relationship. At the end of the day, you don't have to like look like me to sort of understand that I potentially could have certain challenges. Rather, we look at things like racism, individual systemic racism, or other sort of challenges or hurdles that others may not have. No, you don't have the same experience in there, but the reality of it is you need to take a stance of curiosity to learn and allow your client to educate you on what their specific experience is. And so for me, when I'm thinking about my experiences as a Black male, and if I was a client coming in, I would want a counselor who, again, accepts me for who I am. Okay. And so what I'm meaning by that is, and I share this all the time with my students, like I want you to see me not just as a 34-year-old male or as a counselor or a counselor educator. You need to see the fact that I'm Black. Like you need to like see that, and I'm not, it's not one of those things of that's the racism doesn't exist kind of perspective where we're all the same.
I don't see color.
Right. I don't see color. That's a microaggression. Yes. So the reality of it is you need to see the fact that I'm Black. So then you can also learn about my experiences. Mm-hmm. You can also understand how I sort of see the world. And if you're going to pretend that we're all the same, then maybe you're not the counselor for me. And so I think that that's one of those things also we need to, if the provider is white or does not share the same race as the client, it's important that they understand how to set up an environment that truly sees them for who they are.
Okay. So, to the therapist who is always saying things like, I don't need to understand cultures. I just have my DSM and I'm good with that, but
right. That's not, yeah, they're not going to be, they're not the best counselor.
Okay. So how do you, in your instruction or just in casual conversation, how do you explain to folks the very unique, because me, even as a Black woman, I can't even fathom some of it. How do you explain the unique challenges and experiences that you brothers go through just to leave your front door and get back home?
Right. I think it starts with stories. Sometimes people lead with statistics, and like statistics are important, but sometimes to me it comes to telling what your story is. Okay. So I'm from South Carolina. My story is Black male, maybe similar to others from South or North, whatever. But the reality of it is we could also have different experiences, and so we need to be able to, in counseling sort of space, have an area where you can come and talk about your individual experience. And so for me, we're talking with meeting a brother on the road or whatever the case may be, us getting able to share what our stories are, what our backgrounds are. What was your upbringing like? Mm-hmm. That's a major space. So as a family therapist, I always look at it, the presenting concern that we see in therapy now can always be tied back to family history. Like that's kind of, or the family unit that's currently together. Like I'm always tying it back to that as a family therapist. That's how we sort of look at it when delving into those pieces. Just as a social worker looks at it from one lens, a psychologist looks at it from another. Family therapist, we always look at it from the sense of the family system as a whole. How does that impact or maintain the depression or anxiety? And what we want to do is change the family system so that depression or anxiety will no longer hold the same sort of weight that it. So that's kind of how we sort of tackle it on a grand scheme of things. But to your question, just generally speaking, it's important that we're able to talk about problems and be okay with that and not be seen as I'm weak because I'm talking about a problem that I'm having with my partner, or I can't talk about this, or better yet, when I was growing up, it was a situation where my parents, if this is someone coming into therapy, saying that I wasn't taught to talk about my problems. You were supposed to just man up, like you weren't supposed to do these things. Sometimes we carry that same sort of perspective in our lives, and then we turn right around and project that onto our kids. And so it's just a cycle that continues to go around or recurrent, and it goes around and around. And so that's where, again, but we can't tackle it until we identify what the problem, what the concern is.
Okay. Now, building on your licensed marriage family therapist and some of the stuff that you just said, my assumption is that Black women are more likely to be open to seeking counseling. And I'm thinking about in the relationship setting and the counseling setting, we might be like, come on, honey, you know, you need to go with me. So he's there, but he's begrudgingly there. He's like, okay, I'm here because she said so, and I just want to keep my, you know. So as a counselor and as the partner, how do we make this a situation where it's going to be effective and we get him to participate?
Awesome question. I love this. So for me, so sometimes we as men, we can be very stubborn to the point that you would just kind of, so you just alluded to, we're just going to be real here. You know, sometimes it could be hard to, our partners can see the problem and concern, but we got to figure things out our way. So that's kind of how that we fall down a lot of times with those instances. So, but to this question that you're pointing out, I think that's the importance. So first, I appreciate sisters have always held us down. And it's important that, again, our sisters continue to encourage us to be our best selves. And we're not our best selves when we are battling something and we're afraid to talk about it. And so I think stars continue to have women to support us and push us to say, hey, I want to see you at your very best. Or, hey, I noticed something's wrong and we need to go do some work, and we as a team can go and work on those pieces. And I think I would say to come into counseling, choosing, because this is one thing about counseling that I want to be clear with. If sometimes the counselor just isn't a good fit for the clients. And so if you go into counseling and you got someone who is, hey, I don't see race, and hey, I've done this, that, and the other, and they don't truly see them, or they want to throw their two textbook. At the end of the day, I think to me, counseling, the greatest skill of a counselor is to build rapport. I need to know that you're a safe person that I can share with my story, and be truly genuine. If I'm a client, a Black male client, in a world where everything that I do is potentially ostracized, is potentially, it's going to be evaluated, I want to come somewhere so I can be genuine and authentic. And if I got to come in somewhere and be fake about something that's important to me, I'm probably not going to want to be there. And the reality of it is, when clients are unauthentic, work doesn't get done. We got to come in and be vulnerable. And so one of the things I would say to it is, if someone goes to a counselor and it's not a good fit, hey, I appreciate your time. We're not going to come back. Continue to do so, because truly clients need to interview the counselor. You're paying at least $100 an hour. That's usually kind of like the going rate. Don't stay somewhere that you're uncomfortable with, or you're not getting a good vibe from. Truly find somebody that's ready, who's wanting to hear you and see you for who you are.
Okay. Now, that brings me to some other potential barriers when seeking counseling that we might have culturally. You know, it's finding somebody that looks like us that we can relate to. Is it here in 2023, is it still economically out of reach for many of us to seek counseling?
For some, yes.
Okay.
That again speaks to why we need more minority counselors who can understand what you just asked about, where we need to have sessions that are on a sliding scale. Clients can pay what they can pay. We need counselors who provide pro bono services.
Okay.
We need counselors who are open to working in underserved areas, as opposed to areas where there's a lot of funding and everyone, again, is in a space to be able to afford it. I oftentimes say the people that need the services the most are the ones that can't afford it. And so we certainly, so that still is a barrier there. But I think it's important and it should be advocacy, a sense of for us as Black counselors to provide ways so that clients that look like us, or clients who might have challenges or barriers in paying for services, whatever the case may be, can take part in the service.
Okay. So as, what'd you say you were, 34?
34, yes.
Still a baby.
That's
But you've lived a little piece of life, and you can reflect back. So when it comes to maybe high school, what can we do to make at a younger age, instead of thinking I'm gonna be a rap star, throw a basketball? What can we do to encourage these brothers to kind of say, hey, go to college,
right,
and bring this back to the community?
Right. Well, I think, and I'm biased because education was always something special for me. My parents always pushed me in relation to the education space. And so, but I will say this, I think that we need to change how we describe education. I think that sometimes we get caught up on social media and we get caught up on, well, to be successful, I got to be an Instagram star. Mm-hmm. Education isn't really it isn't cool to go to college and things of that sort. Then we also get into the conversation about, well, school costs so much money and we can't go, I don't want to get loans and things of that sort. All those are valid spaces. It costs a lot of money to go to school. Mm-hmm. And for somebody like myself who worked throughout college, I certainly understand those pieces. And there were so many people that helped me along the way. I get it. I understand that space. But what I will say is I have a problem with anybody who's Black who will talk down about going to school. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with that because I think at the end of the day, it plays into the stereotype that because when we think about educated folks, we aren't always the folks that come to the forefront. And to suggest to someone who is Black, who's a younger person, that you don't need to go to college, I have a great problem with that. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to say that there are multiple ways to go about being successful, I'm all with that. But don't take the books out of a young man's hand because he wants to be successful in the classroom. Because I think that, again, I think that's flagrant. And I think that that's, you're not telling the whole story when you highlight, the way you can be, certainly you can be successful in so many different avenues. There are millions of folks who have been successful without ever going to college. But don't knock college as if it's a space where it's something that you could gain knowledge from, meet wonderful people, all those sorts of things. So I think we have to change. So to that question you're talking about with somebody in high school, we have to frame it. And this is school counselors' responsibility. This is principals. This is parents. Even if parents didn't go to college, it's one of those things of let's explore. If you got the grades or if you have a talent, let's see if we can utilize that and rather it's a four-year school or trade school, or let's look in ways for you to continue to gain and become educated. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's important. And to the question that you're saying, at 17, 16 years old, those conversations can happen before then. You have to wait till high school to do it. But certainly we need to push, for my lane, we need to push school and education, and we need to shape it in a way that it doesn't seem like it's something boring or it's something dry and things of that sort. When truly having an education, that's something someone's never going to be able to take away from you. True. So I'm always pushing that space with my young.
True. Good points. Yeah, these younger folks, they have their mental health challenges that, some of us older, I just don't understand. I cannot fathom some of the pressure that is on a 16, 17-year-old. They have a whole different world to live in. But I guess I should have asked this question in the beginning, and I'm all backwards here. But, thinking about the young folks and trying to encourage them for education. Explain to them exactly what it takes to be Dr. Muller and what it is that you do at LaGrange, because I should have opened up with that, I guess.
I know, I appreciate it. I know, and again, your questions have been awesome. So thank you for again inviting me here today, this evening. So I have a PhD in counselor education and supervision. And so my route was I graduated high school at 18. I went to University of South Carolina to get my bachelor's degree, which took 4 years. Got my bachelor's degree in business, but I minored in psychology.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that I had a mentor who shared, you can go to graduate school for something different. So I ended up going, I applied my senior year as an undergraduate student for a master's in marriage and family therapy at Valdosta State in Valdosta, Georgia. I got accepted in there, and it's a 2-year master's program. That's where I learned all the tools necessary to be a counselor. Okay. So one of the things that need to be noted, because I think sometimes folks will get this confused, you don't have to be a doctor or have a doctorate degree to be a counselor. Just a master's degree will do. And so I teach in a master's program. I teach master's level students. To be able to teach, I had to go on and get my PhD. So that was kind of my route. That took 3 more years for me. So I had a total of 9, and I went straight through. I never took any time off. 9 years at school to get my PhD, which now allows me to teach. And I've been teaching at LaGrange College for the past 5 years.
Okay. And so you teach people how to counsel folks.
You got it.
You hear that, kids? That's what we want you following his footsteps. Awesome. Well, I think I have picked your brain enough. I am just so excited. Like I said, I'm kind of straddling the fence when it comes to, I'm kind of right in the middle when it comes to generations. So I come from Black folks who bless their hearts. Ooh, I don't want to address it, but this happened. I don't want to talk about it, and it's just created such a murky place for us to exist in mentally. And I'm so glad that we're starting to unpack a lot of it. I think it just pours out into so many areas that are important in our communities, with the way we raise our children, with the way we have our romantic relationships, with the way we have our friendships. I just think it's just beautiful. And just to see a brother in there saying, I'm going to help. Do your fellow brothers be like, man, I don't want to hear you talk about that stuff like that. No, I'm good. I'm good.
No. By our chapter, we're connected. And so I think it's one of those things of, we're starting to see the change when you talk about brothers being able to talk about it, but we need to be able to reach everyone to sort of say, hey, it's cool to come in and talk with somebody. And it doesn't mean that I'm less than, it doesn't mean any of those pieces. We all have, and I'll leave it at that. The truth, if we're truthful, we all got stuff. Okay. We got to get out of the mind frame of, well, somebody will come, because we oftentimes compare and contrast. Well, somebody else got this, they got it worse off than me. We all have stuff. And once we're able to get that space where then that normalizes, because then it's a sense of, I don't have to feel bad because I have depressive symptoms. Okay. I don't have to feel bad because I've got anxiety. I don't have to feel bad because I have panic attacks. Like, we can start understanding we all got stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess before I go, I said I was going to go, but I lied.
No.
Let me ask you this: as the friend or the significant other or the grandma, how do you start to have that conversation with a brother? Like, I think you need to go see somebody. It sounds like you're struggling with some stuff.
It starts with Lana, what you just alluded to, just opening up the conversation. I think what we have to always be mindful of is, especially when thinking about our hesitancy as Black men sometimes to take part, how you go about the conversation is going to play a major role in how we receive it. So coming at it from hostile or making someone feel bad about it, like things of that sort, that's going to go in, that potentially go in one ear and out the other. Okay. Because the reality of it is, you really want the person to make a decision for themselves. If I'm only going for my partner, like, that might be cool for the moment, but ultimately for things to change, I got to want it myself. And that's no different than any sort of life, any sort of career thing that anyone has done. You had to say to yourself, I was ready to do that, and I wanted to do it. And so I would say for the grandmother, for a partner, for a mother, or whomever, it's just having the conversation, truly listening to what the person is sharing. I think one of the things I'll note with that is sometimes people say things that we don't agree with. Like and it's hard for us to then sort of like maintain our cool, because we hear things sometimes it's like, I can't believe you feel this way. I think at the end of the day, there's a difference between approving of something and accepting what someone is sharing. Like, I don't have to approve of how you say this, that, and the other, but I will accept that that's how you feel at this time. I think when we start getting into that space, because again, we're not going to always agree to disagree. Wrong is wrong and right is right. So I'm just thinking about somebody who's making some poor choices. I would never suggest to someone would just go along with someone making poor choices. That's not, you're not being family, you're not being real. Family's supposed to be real with each other. But what I will say is, if you know someone's in a tough space, be able to accept them, meet them where they're at, and don't judge. You got to get out of that judging space also, because again, we all mess up, we all got stuff. So when we kind of get down to that area, maybe we can then, extend the hand and say, hey, let's try this. Like, maybe counseling can be the answer. Maybe that's something that we can kind of do. Like let's do that, and I'll go with you. I think that's the other thing. Sometimes it's much easier to go about something when someone says, hey, I'll drive you there, I'll go with you, I'll participate. In family therapy, you get a chance to work with everybody. It doesn't have to be just one person, that space. So you really get that opportunity to do so. So I would just encourage anyone to just say, someone in that space, talk to them, validate their experience. Don't have to agree with it, validate it. And make that person know, I heard what you said. Because again, we can't. It isn't about just going with the, whatever they're dealing with, and just like, that's cool or whatever. Like, that's not what I'm suggesting. It's more of, I understand what you're saying. Let's explore this. This might be something that'd be helpful for you.
Okay. So the individual who's not necessarily agreeing with you or open to it, we just kind of, there's no pathway to kind of slowly encourage somebody that this is an opportunity, because I guess I'm concerned about those who really, really need it, but are just not open to it.
Right. So I think it's multiple. That's a great question. I think there's multiple ways to do any and everything, and we're all different. And so sometimes we need somebody that's going to, not in a disrespectful way, but to get in our face and like get us revved up. Like, we got to get going. I'm thinking about grandmas who come up and say, you got to get your stuff together. Like, we need that sometimes, that type of thing. Sometimes that's a wife, sometimes that's a husband, somebody to say, we got to get our stuff in order. But other times we might need somebody that's going to be a little bit more patient with it. It's going to be a little bit more sort of like, I'm going to take you by the hand. Let's just take baby steps. You don't have to have everything figured out the next day. Let's take baby steps. Okay. But I think that comes down to figuring out and knowing the person. Everybody does. Sometimes when somebody raises a voice, we shut down. We feel attacked. And that's not the way we can't, for some, they stop listening to what you're saying.
Okay.
But then the other side of it is sometimes when we take too much baby steps, it's like, well, hey, I don't have to be held accountable. So I think being able to find that balance and figuring out what's going to be the right way and what the avenue, and truthfully be genuine to yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if you care about someone, you want to see them to be successful, help them in the time period that's necessary to be able to support them.
Okay. And I lied again. I got one more question.
No.
I try to keep it on time, but I got one more question. So explain the emotional difference that a Black man who might be a father, husband, working his job, his experience. How is his experience different from a white man who's a father and has a wife and has a job? How is the emotional, psychological differences in those two scenarios?
Right. Well, first I'll say that in some instances they can be very simple. Okay. Like, I'm thinking about someone who grew up in a very affluent, let's say for instance, a Black person grew up in a very affluent background and never was exposed to some of the things that we oftentimes attribute to Black males. Like they don't have understanding things of that sort. They may have a similar experience as someone who is of a different race that had a similar upbringing and things of that sort. Okay. But I will say that for many Black males, I think some of the spaces that we would differ when we talk about like what our barriers and hurdles would be, when we talk about a history of racism and history of, we talked earlier about microaggressions, dealing with the work, for instance, someone who works 9 to 5 and having to deal with hearing microaggressive comments and at work, like that can be damaging. That really can tick somebody off and stick with you when you're hearing those pieces. I think when we think about for some brothers who have been incarcerated or currently incarcerated, how that is, and now trying to come back and sort of come back to their families, that takes a great level of adjustment on everyone's part. So for those, that's another potential barrier and challenge there. I think when you talk about Black men and Black women, this is something I'm passionate about as well. It's important to also like knowing that our relationship concerns may or may not be different. They may be different than someone who's white. The concerns at is because of racism, because of systemic racism, because of a number of issues, because of burdens that Black women have. We could talk all day about microaggressions and like experiences Black women always having to fit into a box, and then on top of that, they always got to take care of us. And like it's that kind of. So we could talk all night in relation to burden they have to. So, but what I'm saying is, you're bringing in two folks, and then it's one of those things that we all got stuff again. We all got challenges. We're bringing that in, and that can be difficult as well. Financial burdens. If you're not in a space to be able to be here, but you're still trying to work with it, that can cause problems and that can cause concerns. Not fitting into stereotypical gender roles, that can be a thing. Not feeling like the man of the house. And what does that mean? I'm always interested with working with men. What's your definition of masculinity and what men are supposed to do? Okay. And like, who showed you that growing up? And lastly, that leads me to that space in regards to, and I'm always careful with this because I never want to give off the wrong impression. That there are Black men who take care of their families. I grew up in a home, my pops was always there for me. And so it's never a space, man. I don't think we ever need to get to the area where it's like Black men aren't fathers, because that's not true. It's not true at all.
That's right.
But the reality is there are too many homes that are just being led by a single mother. Yeah. I think that space is true. Black women have always had to support us. And so there are too many single parent homes. So with that being said, when you talk about like men having to then learn, like, how am I a father when I never had a mentor, I never had a father figure for me? Now, how am I supposed to know how to take care of the kid? And things of that sort. How am I supposed to, again, that sort of battle that can be difficult for Black men as well, especially when there are instances where they didn't have a role model, they didn't have those pieces, and now being expected to not only be a husband, but also being a father. And it's hard, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is. But, I can say that is where brothers like Kappa Alpha Psi fill in the gap across the nation. You guys have these mentorship programs that really try to shore up those missing spots where young Black males don't have role models and examples. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for the work that you are doing. I guess we're just all waiting to just take that deep breath, like, right. It's not going to happen until we get in our heads and kind of unpack a lot of stuff that has generationally been passed down to us, right. Right. I'm just so happy to see that we are doing the work now, because like I mentioned before, grandma sitting in it, we ain't talking about it. So right. I'm so glad that you are here. And I hope to see more of you. I just hope to see more of you. And I hope to see more of us receptive to it. Right. That's the key, receptive to it. We can create tons of mental health professionals, but if the community is not receptive to it, I think that's the big problem.
That's right.
And the generation coming up behind us, they need it. Like I said, they've got social media that implants so much mental trauma into their head. I just really look at them and I just feel so sad. I don't know how they cope with a lot of it, but I'm so thankful that you're here. Sir, I'm going to ask you my random question, and then you're going to share with us how people can enroll. If they want to go down to Georgia, Georgia, and hang out with you for a while. Will you be Will you be teaching in Georgia for a while?
Yes, I've been here for 5 years. Home is still South Carolina. I'm a Gamecock, so I'm huge. South Carolina is everything for me. And so, but for right now, yes, Georgia's my location.
Okay, all right. Let's see what we've got for the doctor here.
I'm excited about this.
Oh, you're such a gentleman. I probably say, if your waiter or waitress was a total jerk, do you still leave a tip?
Oh man. So my initial space is that's a good one. I was gonna say my initial answer would be yes, because I try to do, I think my initial answer to that space would be yes, but I think if it really was disrespectful to the place where I felt like I had to say something, then probably no. But 9 out of the 10 times, if it was a space where it was like maybe it was disrespectful, but maybe it could potentially be a misunderstanding, or maybe things changed throughout the dinner, maybe things got better, then I may include a tip. But if it was over the top, then no, I probably wouldn't.
I got you. That's something. Well, let's the other side.
Well, it's interesting. If it was, I would be more inclined to not leave anything if I was with my wife, for instance. Like if I felt like the dinner was being towards her, then yes, I would be less inclined in relation to that, because I would say something for one. Two, I wouldn't, I'm not going to typically being disrespectful to my wife. So.
That part. Well, sir, tell the future students how they come down there and hang out with you and learn from under you and glean some of that good knowledge you've got.
Okay. Well, first, Lana, if I can just say how much I've appreciated the opportunity to come. And today I had a chance to check out some of your videos and the service and things you do for the male perspective, men talking about things. So I just want to greatly say I appreciate you for the work that you do. It's uplift Black men by doing so. So first, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
And I think for me, so for our students, so I teach at LaGrange College, the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program. So if someone has a bachelor's degree, we only need a bachelor's degree to apply to our program. If we also accept majors, you don't have to be just a psychology major to apply to our program. You may have a story like mine where you have a bachelor's degree in a field that you're not passionate about and you want to go to graduate school for something different. LaGrange College is a place that we love to interview. We're still taking interviews for the fall admission. And so if you're interested in our program, please apply. You can you can Google LaGrange College Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program.
Okay.
That'll take you directly to our page. You can also go to www.lagrange.edu/counseling. That will take you directly to our webpage. You can also find us on Facebook. So we're at www.facebook.com/LC Counselors Listen. But you can also Facebook us by Google searching LaGrange College Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program Facebook, and it'll take you directly to our page. And lastly, I'll share, we offer a virtual program. So for those who are in Georgia and near LaGrange or near Atlanta, you can come in person. But if you're in South Carolina, let's say you're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and you want to join us virtually, you can join us. We have students who are over in several different states. So it's not just to Georgia, it can be anywhere. You can join us, and you'll get a great experience at our Clinical Mental Health Counseling Master's Program. It's a 2-year program. So you would start in the fall. If anybody's going to be coming on this year, you could start in August of 2023, and you'd be finished in August of 2025. So just a 2-year program.
Awesome. And how far are you guys away from Atlanta?
We are an hour away from Atlanta. So right out, an hour away from Spelman and Morehouse and Clark, Atlanta. We're like literally an hour 10 minutes from there. So not too far from it, from Atlanta.
Okay, awesome. Is the rest of the Divine Nine on campus or just you Kappas?
It's interesting. So the LaGrange, so the alumni chapters, I'm a member of the alumni chapter, they're in LaGrange. Is you see all the different fraternities and sororities there. We're hoping to actually have it on campus for our undergraduate students. That's something that we're wanting to do in the future. And certainly we want some future Kappas to come through.
No bias.
And no bias at all, at all. But certainly Crimson and Cream is where it's at. So that's where space is. But yeah, that's what one of the hopes in the future for the students.
Awesome. Well, sir, I thank you for this time. I thank you for the knowledge that you share, the information that you share. I thank you for the work that you are doing, getting us on board, and getting us healed, because the next generations are dependent on that. So I thank you for the work that you're doing, and many blessings and success to you. And I just know I'm gonna look up in a few years, y'all. You're gonna be doing
Okay.
the most. I'm speaking it to you're already doing the most, because I tell everybody I had to practice for like three days on that title. I was like, okay, wait a minute. It goes on and on and on and on. But I'm proud of my brother. Anytime I see my brother, I'm
Well, I greatly appreciate that, Lana. Thank you. I've enjoyed this tremendously.
Awesome. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.